You are alive.
Welcome to Punish for Protecting News. Today we have a story of judicial insanity in the state of West Virginia. I want to talk about child abuse and neglect and the definitions. Child abuse and neglect is any act or series of acts of commission or omission by a parent or a caregiver that result in harm, potential for harm, or threat of harm to a child. Words or overt actions that cause harm, potential harm, or threat of harm. Acts of commission are deliberate and intentional. However, harm to a child might not be the intended consequence. Intention only applies to caregiver acts, not the consequences of those acts. For example, a caregiver might intend to hit a child as punishment. Hitting the child is not accidental or unintentional, but not intended to cause the child to have a concussion. The following types of abuse involve acts of commission: physical abuse, sexual abuse, and psychological abuse. What happens when a court renders decisions that place a child directly into the hands of abuse and leave a protective parent completely ostracized from protecting that child from abuse? On today's program, I have investigative reporter Michael Volpe and a mother, Natalia Dalton. I'm going to turn this over to Michael so he can lay a basis to this story today. Thank you so much for being here today, Michael. And you are muted. There you go.
Thank you for having me, Francesca. And yeah, let me lay this out. Natalia and her ex, Julio, they didn't get married, though they did have a son in 2008. And for the first 6 years, Natalia had physical custody. And during those 6 years, they went to court once. And then sometime around 2013, she started to notice that when her son was coming back from visits with his father, that he was more aggressive. And Natalia went back to court for this. And this opened up, let's call it a Pandora's box. And so rather than investigating the allegations of abuse, and we should note that previously her ex had hit her, and there are police reports, there are photos, there are eyewitnesses who saw this. So the evidence that he's abusive is pretty compelling. But as soon as this was brought back into court, which was initially to investigate why her son was acting aggressively when he came back, it got flipped around on her. One way it got flipped around on her is she wanted to move from the county she was in. We should note it's not West Virginia, it's Alexandria, Virginia, which itself is, I don't know, hotbed's the right word. Let's just say Natalia, not the only victim in Alexandria, Virginia. So the first way she wanted to move, and the ex, his lawyer is aggressive. He called that a change in circumstance, which is a legal term. If something is different, then that's a reason to switch custody if something is different. Now, normally moving from one county to another is not really a change in circumstance. What if you're a slick lawyer and you have a corrupt judge? And for the most part, the judge was Judge Lisa Kemmler, though she may not have been on the case at this point. He used that to go back in to argue for a change in circumstance. And then, and I believe this was April of 2014, this is very critical, there was a status conference, which is like a boring, inconsequential hearing, nothing's going to happen. Status conference. Next thing you know, Natalia's not even there. The opposite attorney is filing some sort of emergency motion claiming that she came to school barefoot. Why that matters or how they know it is not entirely clear, but based on this, with Natalia not being there, they switched custody. Since they've switched custody, they've gone to court hundreds of times. Remember, 6 years? Never. Switch custody hundreds of times. Very important. And what her ex has done is he has limited and now is trying to eliminate her custody time by using what are called show cause motions, which basically are real and mostly perceived violations of some court order. And it just got ridiculous. He claimed that she was being rude to doctors, so she wasn't allowed to call doctors. So she sent a few emails to doctors, and now she's being threatened with jail. So the latest is on Friday, she goes to court. There's actually a court order which says she's not allowed to communicate with doctors about her son. Yes, folks, a bureaucrat, because that's what a judge is is telling a parent what they can or cannot do regarding their own children. And because she sent these 4 emails, she's being threatened with 37 days in jail and $5,000 fine per email plus court costs, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of $45,000 total, along with the 37 days in jail. And that Judge Lisa Kimler will see. Now, there's a couple of other things. There have been 2 guardian ad litem on the case. One is Isabel Kaldenbach. The other one, oh my God, the other one, Natalia will give the name. But the important thing about both of them, they're attorneys. They act as guardian ad litem, but they're actually attorneys. Both claim to have done a thorough investigation of the abuse. Now, keep in mind, they're attorneys, so they can't because they don't know how. I asked Isabel Kaldenbach how she was trained to spot abuse. She said she wasn't. Presumably, this new lawyer, same way. The new lawyer, in an affidavit, claimed that she had thoroughly investigated the abuse, yet when Natalia talked to her, she said, well, I won't ask your son if he's being abused if he wants to volunteer it. That's her version of thorough, which makes sense because she's an attorney, so she doesn't really know how to investigate it. So what you have is government bureaucrats deciding that there's no evidence of abuse because they're really, really smart, and then limiting this mother in her time, even though, and by the way, in the same affidavit, this new guardian ad litem actually said that her son's troubles started right around 2013. I, in an email, said, you didn't find it more than coincidental that the troubles started at exactly the time the mother said the troubles started? Do you think it might be the abuse? Because that seems to be either the biggest coincidence ever, or the abuse that Natalia Dalton was talking about is the reason for the change in behavior you're pointing out in this affidavit. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is. The timeline is exactly when Natalia was first concerned. And here's a woman saying it can't be abuse, even though the psychological problems I'm putting into the affidavit, that's very important. The guardian ad litem is acknowledging the son has psychological problems, and she's found the nexus, 2013, at the exact moment Natalia was complaining. But it can't be the thing she's saying because we investigated those thoroughly. So this is what we have. We have a typical custody case. A whole bunch of bureaucrats who know nothing make decisions, most of them outside of statutes, outside of the law. And next thing you know, one parent had physical custody, everything's fine. Now that same parent is being removed from the life of the child.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that, Michael. And it's absolutely outstanding what they're doing and how they're rendering these decisions, placing children directly into the hands of abuse. Right now, I have Natalia here with us as well. And I want to talk a little bit today also about the ACEs research, the Adverse Childhood Experiences. But Natalia, you and I were talking before this broadcast, and you were telling me some of the things that you've been put through as a mom, unable to protect your child, being re-victimized yourself in this court process. And you went in thinking that, you know, like we all do, you went in thinking that this was going to be something that was going to protect your family. And you were very willing to co-parent. You had every desire to co-parent despite the abusive odds that you were facing. What do you have to say about that? Her volume.
Well, I think the whole situation is really sick. Yes, you're right. I did go into the court hoping to protect my son and myself and get help from this abuse from my ex. But instead, the courts have failed me and my son. Everything just backfired. So, I mean, I was able to get the therapy for my son when I noticed, as I was saying before, the stuff that was happening. That was put on the order, but a lot of these orders were written by my ex attorney. So all these orders are in his favor. Yes. So that's why my ex could just manipulate them and use them. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. If you could speak up.
Okay, all right. I was just saying. So it's really sad that a court could be, they don't want to hear the evidence of abuse. They So they basically left the child with the abuser. And so do you want me to tell the story from the beginning? Is that what
So yes, initially, and Michael did lay a good background. But initially, it was an abusive relationship. You got out of it, yet you still continue to co-parent for the initial 6 years. But it was getting progressively worse during the exchanges. It's leading you to this point right now. But I'm more focused right now, kind of on the fact that you have little parenting time at all. Matter of fact, you have supervised visits. And yet, I know that in every state, there must be a finding of unfitness in which they're not finding in you. You're now facing a jail sentence for a civil contempt for something you weren't even aware of that court date, which this is something that I see all the time. It's in my book. I experience that myself. This is a repeat thing that these judges are doing.
So there were times that I've gone to court by myself. There were times that I went with lawyers. But even when I went with lawyers, nothing they did, I never got a good outcome. The orders were not changed. Nothing they said was stuck in court. The judge, she only listened to the other attorney because I believe they're friends. She honors everything that he brings into court, but anything that I bring in, like proof, like recordings of abuse or my son acting out or whatever, that was all dismissed or it wasn't taken into evidence. So this father just keeps filing these show causes over and over again to cut more and more of my time with my son. I went from 1 month of summer vacation to 2 weeks. Then he went to court, filed another show cause to have. Now he's asking that I have no more summer vacation. That's the last show cause he did. Now he wants all my rights taken away permanently. Like I don't see my son, or if I see him, I have to pay out of pocket for it.
So let's talk about that. How much do you have to pay out of pocket, and how often do you get to see him?
Okay, so now I see him only 2 weekends a month, but only Saturday for 2 hours every other Saturday, and I have to pay a total of $300 a month. And
$300 a month because they need to quote unquote supervise you.
They have to supervise me, and they want me to have a professional there, so I can't get any of my friends or family to do it. It has to be whoever the father picks, and he wants somebody like a therapist or a psychologist or somebody that I would have to pay out of pocket. And he told the judge that I want Miss Dalton to pay for these visits. And the judge says, okay, well, if you want him to pay for her to pay for these visits, then we'll order that. So they put that order.
So let me ask you something, Natalia. Previously in your lifetime, up till this time that has occurred, have you had any mental health issues in your lifetime, or drug abuse, or criminal history, or findings of unfitness of some sort?
No, never. I'm a good citizen. I do volunteer work. I worked with elderly people, comfort keeper. I'm a teacher. I've taken parenting and classes. I've taken all the degrees on child development. I've worked in church. I go to church. I have my son in Awana. There is nothing bad about me as a parent.
Let me ask you a question. Do you, aside from the fact that there was abuse in the marriage, you said to me, you still wanted to co-parent?
I did. I believe strongly in co-parenting. And what I find weird is even this last GEAL, which Michael brought up, Deborah Bry is her name. Even she said, and her closing argument in the last hearing on the 30th, oh, and this mother wants to co-parent. I find that ridiculous. How could you tell the judge that that's ridiculous?
Right.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Can I jump in?
I'm going to have you jump in because I wanted to ask you a question, actually, Michael. As a man yourself, we've seen a history of fathers being completely destroyed in court prior to what we've been seeing in the past several years, where mothers are just, I mean, there's no words for this. That's why I called it insanity. What is your thoughts as a man right now? Because you defend many a mother in your stand. And I think that America needs to hear that. They want to know why many people think that mothers are not going through this.
Right. Women definitely go through this, and ultimately it's an abuse of personality. And there's a million ways to abuse. You can hit, you can threaten, and you can legally abuse. And often the abuser, when they no longer can hit you, and women can abuse in different ways. And that's why I said abusive personality. It's just as likely you have an abusive personality as a woman. You can't hit as well, unless you're Ronda Rousey, then you can hit as well. But so they thrive on this kind of thing in court. But the thing I wanted to add is, what I find shocking is that here's an attorney speaking as if they know what is and isn't good parenting. This woman, Deborah Bray, I cannot stress enough, she's an attorney. Who cares? She has absolutely no expertise to know whether this mother is or is not a good parent. It's a completely absurd. Just as she cannot possibly know if there's abuse, because neither of these people, they're both guardian ad litem on this case, but normally they go to their law office and they file briefs and they write motions. That's what they normally do. On this case, they're a guardian ad litem. If I joined SVU for a case, that doesn't mean I've seen a lot of cases or know what I'm doing. So you can be a guardian ad litem on something, doesn't mean you know what you're doing. So here's this woman speaking on her derriere. She can't co-parent. I find that ridiculous. I find it ridiculous that you're making this comment, period. You don't know anything. Just as she said, we thoroughly investigated the abuse. By thorough means if the son wants to tell a total stranger, he will. And if he doesn't, obviously there's no abuse. That's what she calls thorough, because that's exactly what happened. And then she puts that into an affidavit and makes it seem like we looked under every rock, we investigated, we called all these witnesses, when they did none of it.
What about the fact that where's the psych evaluations or the actual medical doctor, or where's the actual forensic or anything like that? There's nothing to that degree. This is somebody that's out of lane, completely out of lane.
It's two lawyers telling you how to parent.
That's what they do. And then of course, we're going to blame the judge for that. We have to blame the judge for that. It's always on the judge. The judge, folks. The easiest way to remember this, in My Cousin Vinny, the Wah Dyer scene, where his fiance shows expertise. If you're going to act like an expert, you have to have it. That's Wah Dyer, WVOIRDIRE. That's the legal term for it. In this case, what you have is people speaking like they're experts with no expertise. They would fail Wah Dyer, except in this court, they can walk in, and I'm the guardian ad litem, which means I'm an expert on parenting. She's ridiculous for saying she wants to co-parent. Right. And you treat it like it means something. Her opinion is in reality as relevant as picking anyone off the street and bringing them in and giving the same opinion. Absolutely.
Let me tell you something about Isabel Cullenbach that I haven't even told Michael yet. That in the time that she was in the case for a year, she spent a lot of time talking to the father, my ex, and she even went camping with them, which I thought that was strange. How can a guardian ad litem go camping with the father? That was weird. And then she even wrote a report to the home-based therapist that we were supposed to start for my son because of his behavioral issues. In the report, she says this mother is incompetent as a parent because she's a victim of domestic violence and she's never got help. How could I not have gotten help? I left the jerk.
Okay, so basically they're admitting to the domestic violence history and they're allowing the child. And this is
But can I add, if that was anywhere but a court, that person would be fried and toasted for victim blaming.
Absolutely.
Anywhere but a court.
And I have a paper and I submitted this to the court. I didn't give it. I don't think I gave it to you, Michael, but I didn't give it to you later. Mm-hmm. And then on that same paper, she wrote, and this father is the hostility that this father has towards his mother is palpable for anybody in the room. Basically admitting to everybody that this father hates this mother. And she thinks that's okay to leave the child with a parent that hates the mother. I mean, she said to a lawyer that I tried to hire, the lawyer told me, and I actually recorded this, and the lawyer told me at the legal services that Ms. Cullenbach, Isabel Cullenbach, told me that if she had a choice to pick which parent, she knows that the father is impossible and he's a very hard parent and he doesn't like you as a mother. He kind of hates you. But if she had a choice to pick which one, she would prefer the father who hates the mother than a mother who has ADHD or ADD.
Okay, so on that, I want to talk about the child right now. And before I get into this with the ACEs research and so on, I want to talk about the child. But in every court that we see, it's however the wind blows in that court that's going to make this as bad as possible for the children. That's the decisions that our judiciary are making every single day in our country. And this is the reason that we do the programs that we do, to raise as much public awareness on this horrific topic that we're seeing every day, from the time the courts open till they close, every single week. It doesn't matter about your children. These judges don't care. And there's that same guardian ad litem or child attorney or opposing counsel, they're the same in every single court in all of our states. They're the same character. They do this as an intentional infliction to families. Now, when we talk about ACEs research of violence and prevention, in 1979, the U.S. Surgeon General identified violent behavior as a key public health priority. In 1980, CDC began studying patterns of violence. This grew into a national program to reduce the death and disability associated with injuries outside the workplace. In 1992, CDC established the National Center for Injury Prevention and Control as the lead federal organization for violence prevention. Now, these concerns are something that's happening in the workplace, but also they're supposed to be issues that are dealt with in every aspect of our lives in our country. If we're considering prevention to abuse, why is it that children are abused every single day by our courts? Why are our courts causing physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect to children? There were 676,000 child victims reported of child abuse into CPS in 2016. We have discovered that there is at least 80% of those that were false allegations. Of those that are true allegations, judges place them directly into the hands of the abuser and victimize the parent that was the parent that wanted to protect them, and birthing what we know as ACEs. We just lost her, but that's okay. ACEs research, which I'm going to have to go to Michael until she comes back on, regarding what you can recall. Here she is right now. Let's go back to Natalia. Regarding what has happened and what has your child talked about during some of these quote unquote supervised visitations that are highly alarming, and what are some of the diagnoses to your child's mental health, and what are some of the things that have happened to your child, both psychologically and physically even, Natalia?
So he developed this emotional disability after he went with his dad. Also, they started doing suicide threats on him and threat assessments on him. He developed anger, defiant disorder, conduct problems, I don't know, social anxiety issues. So he's just a very angry little boy now. He's not that happy, smiley boy. I mean, I'm planning on taking all the pictures of my son and putting it all over the damn courtroom so they can see just how happy this child is. Now in his pictures, he's like serious and angry. You could tell the child is suffering inside. It's like a tornado is inside of him. All the therapists have said, your son is like a tornado inside. He's got anxiety. He's just never completely happy anymore. It's like his whole world has turned around. He's not the same little boy anymore. He's gone through his dad pulled him out of the 2 schools, but his behavior had just gotten worse. He was supposed to go to a school with an emotional disability, and the father, who they left sole custody with, and they said he makes a better decision, yeah, right, decides to pull him out of a school that has an IEP, which is an individual educational plan, to help him with his problems. Because when he started living with his dad, his behavior got so out of whack that they had to get a shadower with him. And I brought all this evidence to the judge. I brought all his evidence. I had suicide tests. Now he has a shadower. He has to be in on a restricted area on the playground. He can no longer play with other kids. And this is all under the father's care. His behavior log was every single day. He was hurting little girls, pushing them into the pavement, scratching their faces. Like, he was mostly hurting little girls. Mm-hmm. And children at his age don't just hurt children. I mean, a little girl like that. He has to be seeing something. Like he started reporting to me, Ethan, that his father, that he was seeing his dad mistreat his girlfriend. Right. I mean, and nobody wants to listen to me. No matter what evidence I bring into the court, nobody wants to hear it. It's like,
well, we want to hear it, and you're preaching to the choir, and I see these symptoms every day, and I'm going to go right back to you, Michael. We are going to go to a break in 3 minutes, so go ahead, Michael.
Natalia should give you exactly what the judge said. When she would bring the evidence in, the judge, and this must be statute. I don't want to hear it.
Yes.
It must be the I don't want to hear it law. I need to find that in the Virginia code. You asked earlier, why are they doing this? They're doing this because it's a lot more money for the court. Remember, 6 years Natalia had physical custody, 1 court appearance, over 100. How many billable hours? How many garden ad litem? How many times you got to do all of these things? How much money has filtered through that court since they've switched custody? You want to know why they do it? 1 appearance for 6 years. Since he's gotten custody, how many appearances? Hundreds. That's why they do it.
That's why they do it. That's exactly why they do it. That's exactly why they do it. So we go from absolute, we see this all the time. In other words, we see the same thing, different courts. I see it all the time. I see the same stories. I know when you're talking about the behaviorals of your child, I know precisely what's happening to that child. So would any behavioral counselor or psychologist or psychotherapist or licensed social worker. They would know exactly what's happening to that child and why it's happening. However, the courts, they intentionally turn a blind eye to it. That's why they don't want to hear the evidence. They don't want to hear the audios of the child. They don't, because that may give them a conscience. I highly doubt it, but there's a potential for a conscience.
No, look. Something similar happened in the Rucky case, and as I said, in the Rucky case, at least the guy had them file a motion. It was a bogus motion, but he had them file a motion to keep all the evidence out. They don't want it on the record. The judge would rather have herself saying, I don't want to hear it on the record, because she assumes nobody's going to dig far enough and say, I don't want to hear it is a legal argument, Your Honor. All right. Do you understand? Natalia wanted to bring in evidence, and the judge said, I don't want to hear it. Can you imagine if you're charged with a crime and you're not there when the crime was committed?
You don't want to hear it.
Right. Hey, there's this video of me at the kid from the Duke Lacrosse. Can you imagine? He was at a ATM, and the judge. I've got the ATM video. No, I don't want to see it. Can you imagine what would have happened? Right. The judge goes, no, I don't want to see it.
Right.
And that's what's happening. Now look, that's a high profile case. His parents had big bucks. You try to do that. He had a way to fight it. She doesn't have all of those things. That's why she's doing it. But remember, Judge Lisa Kemmler, she has the I don't want to hear it objection. That's how she presides from the bench. I don't want to hear it. Listen, I could do that. If all you need to do is say I don't want to hear it, why go to law school? What exactly has she learned that makes her different than any average person walking in? If all you have to say is I don't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much the consensus of all the judges in America. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to see it.
I just did a case out of Oklahoma. The guy's taking like 53% of his gross income in child support. And he's like, Your Honor, how am I supposed to pay this? You'll just have to figure it out. It's another one. That's Judge J. Anthony Miller over in Tulsa. So that's what you have. You have these judges who make up statutes, make up things, and they just go with it. And there's no basis in the law. I don't want to hear it. You'll just have to figure it out. This is what we have for judges.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about some solutions right now. But first, I'm going to show my book trailer to my best-selling book, Punished, the number 4, Protecting the Injustice System of Family Court. So we'll go to that now.
All right, you are back. You are back, Francesca. You are back, Francesca.
Okay, I want to also just show a quick clip here of our very own Don Rufty. Don has prepared a proposal to our president. It's an executive order that we're working very diligently right now to try to get a lot of signatures on, and we need your help, America. We need your help because guess what? This is not one isolated case that you're looking at today. No, sadly, this has been happening to mothers and fathers across our nation for literally 50 years. And we're very, 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 very concerned about what has been happening to our nation's children, our nation's families. And it is something that affects everyone. If you don't think it affects you, keep watching our program. You'll see just how badly this affects you. As a matter of fact, this actually will begin and has begun to affect even the very judges that have rendered these horrific decisions and have harmed our nation's children, because the very health, safety, and entire welfare of our children in our country has been dramatically affected, causing the serious drug situation that we see in our country that's getting worse by the day. So I want you to see this clip that Don Rufty did, and then when you get the opportunity, please go on my Facebook page and sign that petition so that we can speak before Congress and bring this to our president's attention to sign it. These are our actual laws. We just want them protected, and we want them endorsed. And here's Don Rufty.
Hi, I'm Don Rufty. I have been asked to speak about the proposed executive order, which I was asked to write for presentation to President Trump. I'm going to read it. Proposed executive order, which will in effect be an emancipation proclamation for the 21st century. Executive order to restore integrity to state courts. In response to thousands of meritorious complaints that I have received from the American people from all over the nation since taking office as your president, I am issuing this very belated executive order. For decades, numerous lower court judges have issued court orders that violate the rights of Americans. Each such illicit court order is a clear-cut felony committed by the judge pursuant to U.S. Code Title 18, Section 242. Although the law is crystal clear and easily understood, the aforementioned violations have continued unabated. The results of these crimes against the people have been horrendous. These abominations have been especially prevalent in the family courts. The social carnage of which I spoke in my inaugural address has destroyed the lives of millions of American citizens. Millions of American children have been wrongfully taken under color of law from fit parents. The parents have become financially destitute in their futile efforts to rescue their children from the foster care industry. Many have become homeless, and many have committed suicide. Not only have the mothers and fathers committed suicide, many of the children who have been physically, sexually, and chemically abused in foster care have also committed suicide. This very dark chapter in American history is going to come to an end, so help me God. The numerous violations of the rights of the people have enabled the family court racket to operate for decades. Motivation for this ongoing criminal enterprise has been monetary. Hundreds of billions of dollars have been taken from the Social Security Trust Fund to finance this criminality. Draining the Social Security Trust Fund, in effect, is stealing the retirement of the younger generation of Americans. I am hereby ordering vigorous enforcement of federal criminal complaints submitted to federal magistrate judges in conjunction with Rules 3 and 4 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure. pursuant to U.S. Code Title 18, Section 242. The Supremacy Clause for the Constitution of the United States shall nullify any attempt to circumvent, abrogate, or violate the constitutionally protected rights of the American people. Any noncompliance with this order will be ample grounds for the removal of any judge who is guilty of obstruction of justice, dereliction of duty, malfeasance, misfeasance, or nonfeasance. Any such offender will also be indicted and prosecuted. Signed, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. If you receive this by email, there's a place below that for you to sign if you choose to endorse the proposed executive order. I hope you will. And if you do, feel free to post it and share it widely. All America has a stake in this. Thank you.
So yes, all America has a stake in this. That means that each and every one of you really can help us right now if you would please sign that executive order. Please sign that executive order. Share that executive order far and wide. Our nation's children, listen, we're on the brink, I believe, of one of the biggest breakthroughs to stop this just detestable system that we've been all suffering from for way too long. And we need you to sign that order, because that order would literally jail these judges and stop these crimes. And they are crimes. They're felony crimes. So I'm going to go back to Mom right now, Natalia, and I want to talk a little bit about, and I know this is very hard to talk about, but I want to talk about what this has done to you as a mom, not being able to protect your child because the judiciary is forcing you out like this.
Okay, so sorry, I thought I was still on mute. So as a mom, I've been very upset and sad, and it affects me because now, I feel like my hands are tied. Like I can't protect my son the way I should. I should be able to. Like just for example, back in November, the father lost his job in October, and I've dealt with the father the last time he's lost his job when I lived with him, and he becomes very depressed and he gets really angry, and it's not a really good state for him to be in, especially with his personality. And my son started reporting abuse, like his dad was grabbing him by the neck and trying to force medication down his throat, twisting his arms and everything. So, I took my son to the magistrate thinking that, oh my God, maybe this time the courts will listen to me, right? Because I took my child to the magistrate, and the magistrate filed a protective order to protect my son, right? Well, less than 24 hours the next morning, his attorney went to the court and got that dismissed, and nobody notified me of it. And my son was back in his father's care that same morning. He pulled him out of school, and he never brought him back to school again. Until today, my son is out of school. And I tried to tell the courts that he did that because of the abuse allegations that my son is now reporting. He wants to hush my child up and not tell him anything, and him not to speak to anybody. I don't know. It's really upsetting. Even I feel like everybody has failed me. Like I'm so glad that Michael has connected me, but because finally I feel heard.
Right.
Because all these years, I just don't trust people anymore. I feel like that the system has failed me, has failed my kid. And if nobody listens to me, my son is going to grow up and be really angry. And I don't want to see my son in and out of juvie. But that's the direction he's going. It is really sad because they've taken away all my rights as a parent. I can't go talk to the doctors. I can't talk to the therapist. I can't write emails. If I write emails, even if it's blind copy, I get in trouble for it. The father has put my son on these medications, and nobody wants to tell me what the medications are for. He's on 3 pills that are causing a lot of side effects. So what did I do as a mom? I write the father ignores me. So I start blind copying the doctors. Well, they brought all of those emails in, and now I'm punished for them. For protecting my son. Now I have to spend 37 days in jail, $5,000 for each email, that I sent, blind copy, and I'm being punished. And then I'm being punished for taking my son to the magistrate. Now I can't see my son only the 4 times a month. They're trying to take all my visitations away. What for? Because and then when I told the judge that I wanted to bring my son in twice, and he could talk to her in the chambers so she could hear it herself. Oh no, the opposing party doesn't want him in there. Of course they don't want my son in, because my son would tell the truth. So why bring that into the court? The truth will come out. The CPS lady that went on, that I thought, okay, well, maybe she'll report the stuff to the court because she told me she would. No, she went on the stand and she literally lied. I swear I wanted to stand up in the courtroom and scream and go grab her by the neck.
Yeah.
She told the judge that she met with my son once in the father's home, and the father didn't report anything. Of course he's not going to report anything. My son says that his dad records him all the time. That records him when he's on the phone calls with me, and records him when he's not on the phone calls. Like, my son doesn't trust his dad, right? And then the one opportunity that I gave my son to tell the CPS lady in her office, she goes to the court and she doesn't even mention it. She acts like she never met with my son again. And it's just sick. It's sick that nobody wants to hear what my son has to say. And they don't care. They just don't care. And I think that's the part that hurts me a lot, is because I can't do anything for my kid.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
I mean, now he's 24 hours with the abuser. Now I have a supervised visitation, and the child reports to me and her the stuff the dad continues to do. So guess what? In the last hearing on the 30th, the supervisor who does my supervised visitation that I pay her, she went to the court and she told the judge, oh, yes, I had to call CPS. Oh, the judge says, oh, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear anything in this courtroom what the child said. So she just shuts up everybody. So anytime I try to bring out the abuse, I just get shut up. I mean, and I think it's really sad what's going to happen to me in this court hearing. I could be facing jail time. I have to pay $23,000 in attorney fees, $5,000 for each email that I blind copy to protect my son, which is sick. That I would have to go to when I'm doing something good for my kid. And the fact that this judge, instead of looking at the evidence, she would prefer to believe the father's lies. Every time he brings a show cause in, it's just lies. And so, like, what's really weird is this judge, the first time she did the order, she followed the Virginia code, the best interest of the child. The second time she did it, she did her opinion letter. So basically, she changed everybody's testimony, and she worded it in a way to make me look guilty on 4 charges. My lawyer argued and said that I was not in contempt of court order, but she somehow made me in contempt of court order and found me guilty and suspended my jail time. But this time, the way this judge has been ruling, and get this, now this time, you know what she wants to do? She says, oh, I don't want anything in writing. I want this to be oral. What is that supposed to mean? Why does she want now this hearing to be oral? Why can't it be in writing? I mean,
it's totally illegal, because she's about to do something illegal. It can't be stressed enough that she's facing jail because she blind carbon copied doctors on an email asking about her son's medication. And the way the court has done it, she's not even allowed to talk to doctors about her son. And this is parenting by bureaucrat, because this is one bureaucrat, this brave lady, giving a recommendation, which another bureaucrat, the judge, Lisa Kimler, applies. It's 2 bureaucrats who think they know better how to raise a child than the child's mother. And so as a result, they're saying you violated our court order. Not that the court order is not only illegal, but ridiculous. Like the judge who ordered it, rather than saying that, they want to put her in jail for it. And then when they don't put her in jail, they're going to look magnanimous. We could have, but we're going to go ahead and suspend the sentence because we're going to be lenient. And that's what you have. It's extremely sick. It's 2 lawyers. The guardian ad litem are both lawyers. making recommendation to a judge about child abuse. You just heard it. Every time she tries to bring in evidence, I don't want to hear it. It's the I don't want to hear it statute. I'm pretty sure that's not actually in the books in Virginia.
Well, unfortunately, Michael, and thank you, and Natalia, I don't want to hear it is what these judges are doing everywhere. That one just happened to say it, but that's what we're dealing with all across the board. And again, I just want to say this. I want to say this right here. Child abuse definition is very small. If you look it up, it's physical maltreatment or sexual molestation of a child. That's what our definition is in the dictionary. Physical maltreatment or sexual molestation of a child. Of course, what I'm concerned about is the emotional damage to these kids. And like you just got done saying, what's the future of this child? What's the future of this child? Well, this child is one of a million children in our nation where these judges that don't want to hear it, don't want to see it, they're causing our future. This is our future. They're causing future damage to our families, to America. And we must do something about it. We absolutely must. I'm going to show a quick, Ted's going to actually show an event that's coming up in September for the children. This is something else that we'd like you all to register and get involved. September 7th through 11th. Please check it out, for the children, USA.com. And try to be there if you can. We need to get our children protected in our nation, and the fundamental God-given rights that God above has given to us, that these rights are no longer violated by these vile judges. So sign that petition because they need to be jailed for this action. And let's get to this event, and anything that you see that passes through Facebook that has to do with any kind of change to this diabolical system, please support it, please endorse it. Please do whatever you can possibly do. If everybody does a little piece, you'll be amazed at how fast we can literally shut this down. I believe we can shut this down. And I interview parent after parent, mothers and fathers, nationwide. And 99% of the time, they're good parents. Yes, occasionally I've got one or two that kind of slip in. But you know what? The way the system handles it is far more barbaric than anything that's actually happening in these homes with these kids. Michael, I want to thank you. Natalia, I want to thank you. Michael, did you have a closing statement you wanted to make, or?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this case is a microcosm of what's happening all around the country, and specifically in Alexandria. Keep your eyes out for Alexandria. You're going to hear a lot more cases in that specific area.
Natalia, did you want to say anything? Unmute you.
No, that I appreciate you having me on the show. I hope that with all these shows that we're doing and talk, that we do bring justice to this world and we get the help that we need. I hope everybody hears these stories, and I hope that we can make a change for our children and our children's future.
I'm going to take it to a clip that one of your friends did, a speech regarding your case right now before I wrap this program today.
Okay.
Just a second, any discussion? Hearing
Next
none, all those in
speaker
favor
is
say aye.
Janice Watt-Grenadier, to be
As
followed by
opposed, the
Dina
ayes have it.
Drudy,
Thank you.
Tim
We're in executive
Foley, and
session.
Gary Carr. Welcome, Ms. Grenadier.
Good morning. I thought when I was in college and raped, that would be the worst thing that ever happened to me. But the worst thing that ever happened to me has been in the judicial system here in the city of Alexandria. That guy got 6 years. Everybody here will walk. They will be allowed to rape me of all of my judicial rights with no consequences whatsoever, as all of you sit there and do nothing, as the city of Alexandria does nothing about police who lie, who judges who rule by bias. And today I'd like to talk about that. There's a young girl who's going to be in front of Judge Kemmler who lost custody of her son. In November or December, she took her son to the magistrate to get a special, restraining order against the father. The father had apparently choked the child. I've been working with her as an ADA advocate. I took the courses so that what has happened to me would not happen to somebody else. 3 years ago, Judge Kemmler took this child. This child is now on all kinds of different drugs. She went to the magistrate gave her the restraining order. The very next morning, Donnie Colton, ex-partner to Judge Nolan Dawkins and friends of all the judges, was able to get the restraining order removed. That night before, I had overheard the police officers telling the little boy he couldn't go into his apartment to get his stuff for school. It wasn't safe for him. Finally, they restrained the father in another room and he was allowed in. That very next day, the father took him out of school because he was unemployed and is now homeschooling him. Judge Kemmler has taken away all the rights of this mother. She has stated very clearly to this mother she can't even have a regular visitation and not to come back into her courtroom without a lawyer. She's gone to lawyer services time and time again. I've even helped her meet with lawyers. None of the lawyers will touch it because it's all about bias. It's no different than what Ben DeMiro and Michael Weiser did to me. These lawyers who are in bed with these judges, and everything is done for favor, for breakfast, lunch, dinner, a weekend getaway, or sex. And everybody's looking the other way and is uncomfortable about it. And we have a lawyer up there. We have a lawyer up there that knows this, James Banks, because I've met with him. He's got the documents. He's got the documents of lawyers lying in court, lying in court documents, and ignores it. And the city ignores it. How many of our American children are we going to not stick up for, but stick up for illegals? Stick up for the people that don't have a right to be here. And this is going on. We look at Michael Gardner. He was a fundraiser. Michael Gardner molested several young girls. He was found guilty. Our appeals court said no, but our Supreme Court let him out of jail so he could hire a hitman to kill those young girls.
Okay,
they had to go through that hell a second time.
Thank you. Thank you. We have to go on to the... All right, Councilman Smedberg.
Madam Mayor, I know this is free mic and people can say anything they want, but I have to say the comments that we hear basically monthly from Ms. Grenadier are slanderous and are very, and unless there is documented evidence and things, I think it does personally cross a line because you're going after the character and reputation of people, and I think it definitely crosses a line.
Mr. Smedberg, I'd like to then supply you with the documents. Would you like to set a time when we could meet? I have all the documents. I would like to supply you with the documents. They're online, but I would love to meet with you. And
I simply made a statement, Ms. Grenadier.
I appreciate that.
I think you cross a line, and I think you actually, quite frankly, abuse the open mic practice.
And I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate the freedom that we have in this country to be able to have this discussion, and for you to be able to tell that to me. And now let me tell you something. You took an oath of office. You took an oath of office to defend a victim. And you know what? All you've done now is to criticize me and try to marginalize me more and to try to call me indirectly, you did not directly say it, but a liar, that I'm saying things that I can't back up. I would be in jail right now if I made one statement, because that's where everybody wants me, is to either be murdered. I was in the hospital in September having been poisoned. I have the documentation of pictures of people that were hired to harm me.
I'm sorry. We have to move on to the next speaker. So
but this is what we
need to be.
But
I
this
understand,
is the one thing we have in this country.
We're the legislative branch. The judiciary is across the street and 2 blocks over, and we certainly welcome everyone's input, as Mr. Smedberg just stated. But it's also a balance, and you know, and I know, we all know that we're here to set policy and certainly hear concerns from the public, but the judiciary branch is, across the street. So, but we have to move on. We have a very large docket.
Well, I need to say one other thing, though. The one thing you do have control over through Mr. Jenks is the police, and the police are not doing their job.
Okay,
a child is in a home with an abuser and not in school.
All right. Next speaker.
I certainly didn't want
I'm the
to
next
hear anything
speaker.
You're
about
back.
Hold on. I'm the next speaker. That would be me. I'm going to wrap this. I'm the next speaker, and guess what? As the next speaker, I'm going to say whatever I want to say because this is my show. And I don't have that idiot there that she had telling her she couldn't and that the judiciary was across the street. Because you know what, people? It wouldn't matter if the judiciary was in your backyard. They're not our judiciary any longer. They're unfair, they're unjust, and the scales are not balanced. And that's what we need to do as Americans. When we see something like that, when somebody is clearly guilty and doesn't let her have her First Amendment right of freedom of speech and doesn't want to see the evidence, we know that we have a vile problem on our hands in this country. And the most important thing in this nation is the fact that it's the children that are being abused every single day by you judges, you that are actually watching this right now. You're the ones that are abusing our children. Every single day when you put on that robe and you stand behind your pulpit or whatever you stand behind, you are putting that gavel down and you are hurting a child. And I don't feel that us as Americans, we the people, should sit here and allow you to continue to abruptly change the lives of countless families in our nation. And so my mouth will continue to go. I will keep exercising my First Amendment right of freedom of speech, and I will say what has to be said. We have a plethora of evidence against judges in this nation that have been rendering court decisions under the guise of judicial immunity that is not even a legal term. It's not even a legal, there's not even a legal definition behind it because they are violating every moral code that is out there. When you start to disassemble families and take apart children, you have just crossed something that is sacred. It has nothing to do with the laws of this land. It has to do with the laws of God and nature. And it is time that we as Americans get up off of your butts and start to say no. I want to see a revolution in this country. I want to see us up and outside, standing in the streets and not standing for this garbage anymore. One child is too many. 1 minute is too many. And yet we've allowed it for 50 years. Are you ready to make the changes? Are you really ready? Do you really care about your children and your neighbors' kids? I hear parents say they'd walk through fire for their kids. Well, the fire has been blazing for a very long time, and I don't see you doing it. I don't see you doing it. I think it's time that we start to rise up as a country and we actually put our money where our mouth is, because you're not going to have any money to support your kids. You're not going to have any kids to support if you don't wake up, rise up, and do the right thing. Let's pull together. Let's get that petition signed. Let's get to these events, and let's support everyone, and let's support these children. This is not an isolated case. There are millions of families that have been completely and utterly devastated by our judicial system. How dare they call it a system of justice, because it's not. And that's the end of Punish for Protecting News today. Thank you. Michael jumped off.